Welcome to Easy Goal channel and also Toppers Class channel. Thanks to all the viewers for subscribing our channel. To get latest information, subscribe the channel, share the channel, and also like the channel. So our channel target is 1000 subscribers. So to get latest classes of biology, class 10 CBSE, class 10 state PG state syllabus, and class 10 EP state syllabus, and also NEET syllabus. So please subscribe the channel, share the channel, and like the channel for the latest classes on important topics of CBSE syllabus and also state syllabus and also NEET syllabus. So please subscribe the channel for the latest classes, important topics of biology. Okay, today we are going to discuss about one of the important topics in biology. So the important topics are related to or belongs to chapter 2. So respiration lesson. So first, what is mean by respiration? Respiration means it is the one of the important processes. It is the one of the important life process in living things. So it is a process in which food is break down into energy. Food is break down into energy and also produce other substances like carbon dioxide and water. In lower organisms, while breaking down of food into energy along with the carbon dioxide and other substances like alcohol also produced. So what is mean by respiration? Respiration, it is the one of the important processes in living organisms, breaking down of food into energy. Breaking down of food into energy. So respiration takes place in the cells. The respiration takes place in the cells is called a cellular respiration. Where takes place respiration takes place in the cells of all living things. So this is what cellular respiration. Cellular respiration. Respiration takes place in the cells is called a cellular respiration. So modes of respiration. One is aerobic respiration and one is anaerobic respiration. One is aerobic respiration and another one is anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen. O2, oxygen. Aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration takes place in the absence of oxygen or low amount of oxygen or lack of oxygen. Absence of oxygen or lack of oxygen. So respiration, it is one of the process in living things. Production of energy from food by breaking down of food into energy. This is what respiration. Modes of respiration, two types. One is aerobic respiration and one is anaerobic respiration. Now we are going to discuss about what type of respiration takes place in humans and plants, higher organisms, and what type of respiration takes place in living organisms like lower organisms, in the presence of oxygen, in the absence of oxygen. So what type of respiration takes place, how much energy is produced, how the energy is stored in the cells, in what way, in what form, we will discuss. So mainly respiration takes place. Aerobic respiration takes place in living things in two phases. One is glycolysis and one is Krebs cycle. Krebs cycle, it is also called citric acid cycle. So aerobic respiration takes place in living things, living organisms in two phases. One is glycolysis and another one is Krebs cycle. So first we will discuss about glycolysis. Glycolysis takes place in all living things. Glycolysis, it is the first phase of respiration. It takes place in all living organisms, higher organisms, lower organisms, in all the cells. But the second phase is Krebs cycle is depending on the availability of oxygen, absence of oxygen and presence of oxygen. It is different. So first phase of respiration is common in all living organisms, lower organisms, higher organisms. It is common. So now we will discuss how the glucose means what, how the glucose reaches to our body cells and how it is break down into energy. We'll discuss. So you know that blood vessels in heart are the parts of circulatory system, transportation system. Transport system, circulatory system, heart, blood vessels, and blood. Blood carrying all the nutrients, enzymes, hormones, and gases like oxygen, carbon dioxide from one place to another place in our body within the body. So while carrying of all the nutrients, gases by the blood from one part to another part. So how the blood flows in the blood vessel? You know that blood flows in the blood vessel. For example, it is the blood vessel, artery. The cells are, these are the cells. So when the blood flows in the blood vessel, this is what artery, for example, artery. So when the blood flows in the blood vessel, blood carry what? Oxygen, nutrients, enzymes, hormones, all the essential substances from one part of the body to another part of the body. So when blood carry the nutrients and oxygen, so when the blood flows through blood vessel, the nutrients and also gases are diffuses from the blood vessels to cells. When the blood flows through blood vessel, the nutrients and the gases are diffuses. Diffuses means what? Movement of molecules from higher concentration to lower concentration. So molecules means nutrients, gases, diffuses into the nearest cell. So glucose is when glucose nutrients moves through the blood vessels. With the help of blood flows in the blood vessel. So nutrients are diffuses into the nearest cell. And now this is the cell, and the glucose is entering the cell. Glucose molecule, food molecule, nutrient is entering into the cell. So diffuses into the nearest cell. Now the food means one nutrient. Glucose is carbohydrate is reaches to the glucose. How the cell is going to get that energy? Glucose should be break down into energy. Glucose should be break down into energy. So each and every cell, we are multicellular organisms. Our body is made up of with millions and trillions of cells. Each and every cell in our body is required energy for maintaining their metabolic activities, their life process. They need energy. So glucose should be break down into energy. Glucose break down into energy. You know that this is what cell, and what are the components of cell? So cell membrane, nucleus, and between nucleus and cell membrane there is a jelly-like substance. This is what? Cytoplasm. So after reaching glucose molecule to the cell, glucose break down into energy. It must be break down. The cell should get energy. It should be break down. So glucose, here glucose, how many carbons are there? 6 carbons are there. What is the chemical name of glucose? C6H12O6. So how many carbons are there? 6 carbons are there. Glucose, 6 carbons. So glucose breakdown into two pyruvates. So each glucose molecule is having 6 carbons. The 6 carbon molecules glucose break down into two pyruvates. Each pyruvate is having 3 carbon molecules. So here 2 into 3, 6 carbons. So glucose 6 carbon glucose break down into two pyruvates. Two pyruvate. Each pyruvate is having how many? 3 carbons. 2, 3 are 6 carbons. So pyruvate, 2 pyruvate, it is also called pyruvic acid. Don't confuse. So pyruvic acid. So 2 pyruvic acids are 2 pyruvates. So glucose breakdown into 2 pyruvates, it takes place in the cytoplasm of the cell. Okay, in which part of the cell? Cytoplasm of the cell. So glucose breakdown into 2 pyruvates. Each pyruvate is having 3 carbons. 2, 3 is 6. Here also 6 carbons. So glucose breakdown into 2 pyruvates. It takes place in which part of the cell? It is breakdown. It's broken down into 2 pyruvates. Cytoplasm of the cell. So glycolysis, breaking down of glucose into 2 pyruvates. This takes place in the part of the cell, means cytoplasm, is called glycolysis. Glycolysis takes place in a cytoplasm. Glycolysis, glyco means glucose. Lysis means what? Breaking down. Glycolysis takes place first phase of the respiration. In cells, takes place in a cytoplasm of the cell. Glyco means what? Glucose. Lysis means what? Breaking down. So glycolysis takes place in which part of the cell? Cytoplasm of the cell. Glycolysis, it is the one of the phase of the respiration. It takes place in cytoplasm. So glycolysis, it is the first phase of respiration. So glucose breakdown into 2 pyruvates. So here also little amount of energy is produced. Little amount of energy. Okay. While breaking down of glucose into 2 pyruvates in the cytoplasm of the cell is called glycolysis. So glycolysis also, during the glycolysis also little amount of energy is produced. So it is equal to 2 ATPs. Little amount of energy is produced. 2 ATPs. So glucose breakdown into 2 pyruvates in the cytoplasm of the cell is called glycolysis. It produces very little amount of energy. It is equal to 2 ATPs. You know that ATPs. Adenosine triphosphate. Energy is stored in the cell in the form of ATP. Mitochondria store the energy in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So little amount of energy also produced during glycolysis. Remember it. Next, after glycolysis, you can take any cell. Plant cells, animal cells, and also microorganisms, muscle cells. So up to glycolysis, it is the same process. This first phase is same in all the cells. Glycolysis, it is the common phase, and it is the first phase of respiration. It takes place in all the cells. But after glycolysis, the 2 pyruvates are producing energy. It is depending on availability of oxygen, absence of oxygen, lack of oxygen, and presence of oxygen. So, for example, 2 pyruvates producing energy in a bacteria and muscle cells. So it takes place in the muscle cells and bacteria, lack of oxygen. And the two pyruvates in yeast cells break down into ethanol and energy. In yeast cell, absence of oxygen. So after glycolysis, the remaining processes depending on the absence of oxygen and the lack of oxygen, presence of oxygen. So after glycolysis, absence of oxygen or lack of oxygen in lower organisms like bacteria and yeast cells, and sometimes when we uh, doing strenuous exercise and lifting heavy objects, pushing heavy objects, we need more energy. At that time also our body cells produce energy without oxygen, lack of oxygen, even lack of oxygen. So at that time also our body cells get energy. So that is in the uh, absence of oxygen, lack of oxygen. So what is happening? Lactic acid is produced. Lactic acid is produced. So next two pyruvates, absence of oxygen, lack of oxygen. It is depending on the lack of oxygen and absence of oxygen. So the cells, how the energy is produced. For example, absence of a lack of oxygen, lactic acid and energy is produced. Lactic acid and energy produced. For example, bacteria and muscle cells when we are doing strenuous exercise, while we are playing outdoor games, after 2 days we will get muscle cramps. Why? Because our muscle cells get energy during playing, but the glucose is not completely oxidized. Incomplete oxidation. So glucose means pyruvic acid are break down into lactic acid and also little amount of energy. Little amount of energy is produced. Lactic acid is stored in our muscle cells because of accumulation of lactic acid in our muscle cells. After playing outdoor games, after 2 days, we will get muscle cramps. Accumulation of lactic acid in our muscle cells. So yeah, two pyruvates are breaking down into lactic acid and energy. Little amount of energy is produced. It means what? Two pyruvates are breaking down into energy and also lactic acid. Partial oxidation is takes partially oxidized. So lactic acid, lack of oxygen, lactic acid and energy is produced. So example, bacteria and muscle cells. Muscle cells. Next, absence of oxygen. Absence of oxygen. So what is happening after pyruvates? After glycolysis, two pyruvates are formed. So after glycolysis in a yeast cell, two pyruvates are produced into energy. Energy is utilized by the yeast cells and also the sugar solution is converted into alcohol, ethanol. Okay, this process is called fermentation. This process is called what? Fermentation. So absence of oxygen. Only one of the uh, organism, that is yeast, it can be survive without oxygen on our earth. So they are also called anaerobes. They are also called what? Anaerobes. One organism which is present on our earth that can be survived without oxygen. They are called what now? They are called anaerobes. Yeast cells are the anaerobes. They can survive without oxygen. So absence of oxygen, they can be survived. So they are called anaerobes. So anaerobes. Next, these two are the examples of anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration. Next, presence of oxygen. Okay, after glycolysis, in the presence of oxygen, the two pyruvates are produce energy and also carbon dioxide, water and energy. Carbon dioxide, water and energy. So here not little amount of energy, more amount of energy is produced. So why? Because the pyruvates are break down into energy in the presence of oxygen. More amount of energy is produced, and also carbon dioxide plus water also produced. This takes place in all the plant cells and animal cells. So this is called aerobic respiration. Respiration. Aerobic respiration, and a more amount of means uh, 686 686 calories of 686 kilocalories of 686 kilocalories of energy is produced. And absence of oxygen or lack of oxygen here, only 56 kilocalories. 56 kilocalories of energy is produced compared to the absence and lack of oxygen. In a presence of oxygen, more amount of energy is produced. So in the absence of oxygen, lack of oxygen, less amount of oxygen, less amount of energy is produced. In the presence of oxygen, more amount of energy is produced. It is equal to 686 kilocalories of energy. So total 36 ATPs. It is equal to 36 ATPs. So 36 plus 2 ATPs during the glycolysis. Okay, total 36 plus 2, total 38 ATPs energy is produced during the aerobic respiration. 36, the presence of oxygen. So it is equal to 686 kilocalories of energy. So 2 ATPs during the glycolysis. Total 38 ATPs energy is produced during aerobic respiration, and it is takes place in mitochondria. You know that. So presence of oxygen, the two pyruvates after the breakdown of glucose into pyruvates are entered into the mitochondria. Do you know mitochondria? Mitochondria, it is one of the important cell organelle in cell. It is also called powerhouse of the cell. So after breaking down of glucose into pyruvates, two pyruvates are entered into the mitochondria. In mitochondria, the two pyruvates are break down into energy. So produce 686 kilocalories of energy. More amount of energy is produced. This takes place in the presence of oxygen. So more amount of energy is produced. It is also called Krebs cycle. Krebs cycle. Krebs cycle are also called citric acid cycle. Okay, this is about what? Cellular respiration. What is meant by respiration? Respiration means the process of breaking down of food into energy. So respiration, it is one of the important processes in living bodies. So process of breaking down of food into energy is called respiration. It takes place in the presence of oxygen, sometimes absence of oxygen also. So respiration takes place in the cells is called cellular respiration. It is mainly modes of respiration. Two modes. One is aerobic respiration. This takes place in the presence of oxygen, and anaerobic respiration, absence of oxygen or lack of oxygen. Okay, these two are the examples of anaerobic respiration. Means what? Lack of oxygen or absence of oxygen. So first one is lactic acid plus energy. This takes place in our muscle cells and also bacteria. muscles is during while we are playing outdoor games. So strenuous exercise. After 2 days, we may get a muscle comes. So what is the reason for that? Accumulation of lactic acid in our muscle cells. Accumulation of lactic acid means partially oxidized glucose stored in our muscle cells. So it causes what? Muscle pains, muscle cramps. How to get relief from that? Massage, hot water bath and massage are the uh, two. With the help of these two, with the help of these two methods, we can um, convert the lactic acid breakdown into carbon dioxide and water. So then, after doing these, following these two methods, hot water bath and also massage, we will get relief from that. So lactic acid, accumulation of lactic acid in muscle cells and bacteria plus energy. This is what aerobic. Lack of oxygen. It is the one of the example of aerobic respiration, and also fermentation method. So conversion of sugars relation into alcohol by the help of yeast cell is called fermentation. It is also one of the example. So yeast cell are the main role in the formation of alcohol. So best example, yeast cell. So here I have written here anaerobes. So anaerobes are the best yeast cell is the best example of anaerobic respiration. And the next one, presence of oxygen. So lack of energy is produced, 686 kilocalories of energy is produced. So mitochondria. So second phase of respiration takes place in mitochondria. It is also called the Krebs cycle. So 36 plus 2 total 38 ATPs are produced. It is equal to 686 kilocalories of energy. So this is about what? Cellular respiration. Next time we'll discuss about aerobic and anaerobic respiration differences between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. So thank you all for the latest classes of biology, CBSE and state. Subscribe the channel, share the channel, and like the channel. Thank you.